Hello everybody, it's Michael Hollands once again for Son of the Movies. Today I have the pleasure to be joined by John Debney, who for many years has been one of Hollywood's most respected and accomplished composers. He is known for his ability to cover all genres, writing subtle scores and largely orchestral ones as well. He has written the music for films such as Cutthroat Island, End of Days, Dragonfly, The Scorpion King, Bruce Almighty, The Passion of the Christ, Sin City, Iron Man 2, The Jungle Book and many more. Most recently, his first musical, My Silent Night, premiered in Salzburg, a massive undertaking which we will also discuss in detail. Welcome, John.
Thank you, Michael. It's great to be with you today.
Great to have you. You have had a very long and successful career. What do you think is most important for any composer to become a successful one in this industry?
Oh, it's a great question, and I think we could teach a class on it. Actually, Michael, I think some of the things that are very, very important are things like being. I think a composer should be a good manager of people. In other words, I think to have a long career, you really have to be able to communicate with the filmmaker. You have to. I think it's very helpful to have a good awareness of different styles of music, so that if you're doing a comedy one month and you're doing a drama the next, that you have a well-rounded musical background in education to be able to, quickly go into different styles. So I think those two things are very important, being a good people person, as we say, and also being very, very able to do different styles. I think those are the two most important things.
You've worked with so many directors, from Peter Hyams to Gary Marshall and also Mel Gibson. And based on your experience, John, how do they verbalize what they like or what they don't like about a piece of music? Do they comment on the mood of the piece, or do they comment on the instrumentation even, or like they like the string voicings or flute voicings? How does that happen?
Oh, well, that's another great question. Honestly, every director is a bit different. Some are a little more musical proficient, and some are very, very much like Mel, who's not really a musician, but he's such a great actor and a great director. He can sort of communicate the emotion that he wants. So they're all different. Gary Marshall was very different. Gary was very specific sometimes about not wanting certain instruments while certain of the actors or actresses were talking. So he was very, very aware of instrumentation. But they're also different. Peter Hyams is a great old friend of mine, and he would tell you in very kind of sometimes colorful terms of how much he liked or disliked something, and you just have to kind of grin and bear it, and then try something different if they don't like it, and if they love it, then you're okay. So it's trial and error for sure.
Cutthroat Island, John, remains one of your most popular scores. Unfortunately, the film wasn't a great success, but your music speaks for itself, and you wrote one of the best swashbuckling scores of all time, in my book. Do you think there was any particular reason why the film failed? What was your experience like scoring the film?
Well, the experience scoring the film was spectacular. You can imagine it was one of my earlier scores, and certainly one of my biggest scores, probably that I've ever done. And so it was a joy from start to finish. It was a very tough job. David Arnold, my friend David Arnold, I believe was going to be on the show initially, and then he had to leave for scheduling reasons, and then they then needed to cast a composer to do the film, and for many reasons, Renny Harlin ended up hearing some of my music, some of my bigger music from different projects, and he got in touch with me. So it was a joy. It was wonderful. In terms of why the film didn't succeed, that's a tough one. I think back in those days, I don't know. The film was a bit of a stretch. It was Gina Davis in the lead role, and I thought she was actually really good. But perhaps it just wasn't the time yet for a very strong, capable female lead. I don't know. There are many reasons why it probably didn't succeed, and at the time it was a great disappointment, of course, because we were all very proud of the work and the score, and yet the film wasn't a huge success. So I would say that my experience with Cutthroat is more that I'm overjoyed that people like the score away from the film, sort of. And but I had a great time working on it. I really did. Renny Harlin was great. Gina Davis was wonderful. They were wonderful to me as a young guy writing my biggest score, certainly of that time. So it has great memories, and yet, I wish the film had been a success for sure.
I mean, it's still one of your best. I mean, one of your top 5 scores from where I'm sitting, and it also has received many releases, also expanded releases. Unfortunately, I mean, it is so great to see your whole work and all the effort you put in come to life, and it's really a spectacular effort, really.
Well, thank you. It that means a lot. I'll give you one fun footnote to that score, and that was last year, or I'd say this year, actually, earlier this year. I was in London recording some music for a Disney attraction, and we were sort of reminiscing with everyone at the studio at Air Lyndhurst that, about those days and about the first time I'd worked with Simon Rhodes, who's a wonderful engineer. And lo and behold, on the session that I was doing for Disney, there were 1 or 2 horn players that had played on Cutthroat Island literally, I think, 25 years ago. And so I got a big kick out of taking a picture, just like I did 25 years ago, of me with the French horn section. And 25 years later, and it was really fun. So I'm overjoyed to still be able to go there and work. And whenever I'm at Air Lyndhurst, I do think about Cutthroat Island for sure.
Yeah, great. John, from Cutthroat Island to The Passion of the Christ, directed by Mel Gibson, also one of your very best achievements. And the film stands as one of the most controversial and also most powerful movies ever shot. Your score your score to this day remains one of the most intriguing and also one of the most expressive scores. I mean, it's really so spot on, so emotional, and there are many stories about Mel Gibson not being sure what he wanted to achieve musically at first, and I even heard some stories that he wanted to have very little score in the film at first. How did you work with him on this film? Where did you find the inspiration to write one of your best works?
Well, thank you for that. Yes, that's a very sort of interesting story. I will say, first of all, that I love and admire Mel. But I came to that film in a very strange way. I wasn't initially hired on that film. There were initially another 1 or 2 people on the film. And really what happened, they were very, very good composers, but what happened was, as time went on, Mel I think, realized himself that he was going to need a score as opposed to, let's say, the indigenous or ethnic music from that place and time. Meaning, I think over time, Mel realized that he probably would want more of a real kind of underscore than he first thought. So the way I came to the project, my friend, the producer, Steve McAfee, who was Mel's longtime producer, called me one day, and they were sort of, he and Mel and the company were in a bit of a, not a panic, but they were just not sure what to do with this film because it was so powerful, and it was, in an ancient language. It was in Aramaic, and they didn't really know what to do with the film. So they showed me the film. Steve showed me the film. Then I was so moved by the film that I wrote a couple pieces of music over a weekend, and lo and behold, my friend Steve said, well, why don't I bring Mel in to listen to what you've done? And I thought, oh my God, I'd never met Mel Gibson. So he came into my studio, like after a weekend of me trying a bunch of things and sort of demoing a bunch of ideas, and he listened to what I'd had, and there was one piece in particular that he rather liked. So, I remember we had a couple hours together, and he sort of liked a couple of things, and then he left, and I didn't hear anything for a few days, and then lo and behold, my friend Steve called, and he said that Mel, liked what he heard, and he wanted me to maybe stay on and write the score. So that's sort of the way it happened. It sort of fell in my lap. And then the hard work began. I then, started to really study the music of this part of the world and the instruments. And Mel and I started our work together so that every few days he would come to my studio. We would try certain musicians. We would call in musicians and try things. Sometimes they wouldn't work. And then other times we'd happen upon something that he quite liked. So it was about a 3 to 4 month process of creating that score, and I brought in some wonderful, wonderful instrumentalists and singers. I brought in the amazing Lisbeth Scott, who ended up being the voice of Mary, and she wrote the lyrics in Aramaic to the theme that became Mary's theme. And then I brought in these wonderful performers, Ginger and Shankar and Ginger, and they're featured on the score. And I brought in a lot of players and vocalists that imbued the score with, all the organic and the real, authentic sounds of this music. And lo and behold, after working hard for a few months, we ended up in London. We recorded with the London Symphony, and the rest is sort of history, Michael. It's no one knew the film was going to do what it did and be so successful, and it was just very, very surprising and gratifying at the same time to have been involved with it.
I mean, it was huge. I mean, but also one of the toughest cinematic experiences I've ever had. I mean, I remember watching the film when it was released. I watched it in the big theater, and the place was packed, and it wasn't a feel-good experience. Let's put it that way.
No. It was it's very powerful. You can imagine, we worked so hard on it. I had the same experience. The first time I saw it with an audience, I didn't think there'd be anybody in the theater. And lo and behold, we went to the theater and it was packed. And I heard people crying at different times. I heard people praying at different times. To this day, it's an extremely, powerful film to try to get through. And I watch it about once a year during Easter, and it always touches me deeply, and I think it touches a lot of people deeply. But it is not the easiest film to watch.
No, I mean,
That's for sure.
I mean, since you've worked on so many different movies, did you ever feel there was a struggle? Did you ever feel a certain struggle lifting a film musically as you felt there was something wrong, or you didn't entirely believe in the project, or did you feel there was something wrong in terms of filmmaking aspects?
Well, that's a great question. That happens a lot. It does happen a lot. There are a lot of films. I've been so blessed to do a lot of different kinds of films. But there are some that you just, I'll view them and maybe think, ooh, I've got to try to help this in any way I can. It doesn't happen all the time, but it certainly happens, especially when you've worked on as many things as I have. And what I try to do, honestly, Michael, is just try to find whatever it is in the film that I really, really relate to, meaning if there's a character or two or a storyline, that I find compelling, then I go with that. And I guess I'm lucky because I can always find, in anything I'm working on, I can find something or a character or, again, something that I relate to. And that's really what I sort of do. I train myself to love everything I'm working on. And maybe that's a bad thing, but I end up loving anything. You know what I mean? I end up loving anything I work on because, I have to. I really have to. I have to service the film. I have to give the director, he or she, my best at all times. And I feel if I don't do that, then I'd rather not work on something. And I've been very fortunate because most of the things I work on, I fall in love with whoever I'm working with, and we have a lot of fun together. At least I try to make it fun.
Great. It certainly paid off. You have such a strong musical voice, which is so distinctive, and it's really, you're one of the, best out there for a reason.
That's very kind of you. One of my favorite composers, and I'm sure probably one of yours, is John Williams. And
yes.
John always likes to say, when I've been around him a couple times, what can you say to the maestro that hasn't been said? And I remember once I was at a Hollywood Bowl concert, and I went backstage and said hello to John, and I was I'm always touched by E.T. whenever he does E.T. And I said, oh, my God, maestro, the E.T. just reduces me to tears every single time. And John always, in his very, very humble way, says, well, I'm trying, baby. I'm trying to, it was a nice little tune. I'll do better next time, And he always says that kind of kiddingly and in a very humble way. And so I subscribe to his way of thinking. In other words, I'm just trying to make it better each time I go out. And sometimes I'm never really, really happy with my work. Maybe after the fact, I feel a certain sense of pride, but I think it's important to always try to do better and try to do the best work you can next time. And so that's what I try to do. So thank you for your kind words, but that's really what I'm trying to do. I'm just trying to get it right.
Yeah, thank you for your music, John. Very recently, you finished your very first musical, which premiered in Salzburg, which is called My Silent Night, inspired by the piece Silent Nights by Joseph Moore and Franz Gerber. Please tell me a bit about how you came involved with this project.
Oh, my God, it's such a wonderful project. Maybe it's a theme with me, Michael, but I think sometimes things just fall in my lap, and I don't know why, but I'm very grateful. That one was from a couple of guys over in Salzburg, one of them being the head of the theater, Landsberg Theater over there, And the other gentleman that came to me was a gentleman that is from the tourism board. And for some reason, to celebrate this 200th anniversary of the writing of that beautiful song that we all know and love, Silent Night, these two crazy guys over there thought that it would be wonderful to have someone write a brand new musical to sort of not be a historical piece, but to write a contemporary musical that sort of speaks about the things that Silent Night means to people, like goodwill on earth and love and all those wonderful attributes that we all try to put into the world. So they came to me through my agent. It was a meeting. We sort of took a leap of faith, as it were, and I started writing my first musical. And we had a wonderful book writer who, by the name of Hannah Friedman, who wrote a very fun book, and very sort of contemporary setting and a story and a love story, and that's how I came to it. And then we worked for about a year and a half, maybe almost 2 years, and we ended up this last November premiering it in Salzburg, and it was probably one of the most wonderful experiences of my life to do that, and one of the harder things. We premiered it, and it did very well, and I think everybody liked it. So, go figure. Hollywood composer writing his first musical, and
Great.
I lucked out. We had a great cast, and we had great producers and a great orchestra, and very, very, very grateful that it all worked out.
And as I understand, it's not a historic account or historic interpretation, but a modern story of innovation and tradition. What can the audience expect? Is it divided into several acts? Can you elaborate on that, perhaps?
Oh, sure. It's in 2 acts, and it's the structure. It's very along the lines of some of we hope some of the more enjoyable big musicals. It has a number of different styles of music, which is kind of fun. It ranges the gamut from grand Viennese waltzes to jazzy numbers to a couple of big, I think they're nice big ballads that 2 of our lead ladies sing so beautifully over there. And it is a very enjoyable contemporary piece of theater, I hope, for everybody, every age group, from young kids to not so young. And I can only judge by the audience reaction. It seems to get I'm very grateful and humbled to say it gets a great reaction, and we had standing ovations the few times that we've done it, and they're doing it now as we speak, I think.
Great.
But it's a very contemporary play. It's, about a guy from America, and there's a girl from Salzburg, and he wants to go find his passion, which is music. So where better to go than to go to the city of music, Salzburg?
Yeah.
And in doing so, he tries to find the girl that he met when he was a young kid, that he gave a music box to, and way back then. And it's just, I think, an enjoyable piece. I hope an enjoyable piece of holiday fare. It's a very fun journey. I hope. I hope everyone loves it.
Will you take the performance also to other cities and countries?
Oh, we sure hope. We sure hope to. I know that our Austrian producers are talking to people in Vienna and other places, and we hope to do that. We also hope to maybe bring it over to the States. Get the English vocalists on it, because of course, right now it's all performed in German, and it works well in German, by the way. And so, yeah, we hope to bring it here. We hope to maybe bring it to television or to film.
Great.
If we're really lucky, maybe we'll bring it to Broadway one day. We're hopeful, We're step at a time, take it a step at a time, but right now we're just thrilled to have it being performed in Salzburg. It's the most beautiful city, one of them that I've ever been to.
Great city.
So we're really overjoyed that it's getting a good reaction over there, and we really do love our cast and our musicians and our crew over there. They're terrific. They're great.
I mean, Christmas is a celebration which brings families closer together, and a wonderful time of year, of course.
Yes.
How did you express musically what Christmas is all about? Something we can all look forward to.
Oh, I think that's a great question. I think what we hope to do with the show is to express the ideas of the original song, which are that we're really all one. We're all one humankind, and we're all, we all love, and we all want peace on earth. And, it sounds maybe a little cliched, but it's really not, especially I think now in today's world. I think that these hopes and wishes from the original song are as important today, if not more important, as they were back then. And that's really what we've tried to do with the show. I for one wanted to create some memorable melodies that people will get stuck in their head, hopefully. And also, it's a fun piece. There's there's a great cast of kids in the show that all takes place around Christmas time in Salzburg, and so I think it's hopefully a very relevant musical that we hope will play during Christmas for years to come. That's what we hope.
Great. Will there be a CD or Blu-ray release, or at least the streaming of the show, of the musical?
Well, that's a great question. I know that that it has been filmed. A couple of performances were filmed, and that's actually something that I'm going to get into and talk about a little bit more with our Austrian partners. I'd love that. I don't know what the status of there, but there has been talk that they might do that, and hopefully that'll happen.
Could you tell me a bit about the instrumentation, about the orchestra, about the orchestral performance, and the performers on stage?
Absolutely, it's a big show. The cast, at least in Salzburg, is perhaps about 120 people. There are dancers. There's the kinder choir. There's an adult choir. The orchestra is a rather large orchestra in terms of a Broadway style. It's a big orchestra in Salzburg. It's like 70-piece orchestra. So it's a very traditional orchestra. And then we also have, for the more contemporary songs, we have a very contemporary track that goes along with the songs. There are probably 3-4 songs that are very contemporary. There's a rap. There's a kind of I won't say Middle Eastern, but perhaps it's a Middle Eastern flavored song. And so it's quite a world approach to the music, which is fun for me, including an electric guitar, I might add.
Great.
And a rhythm section in the orchestra, piano, bass, drums, guitar. So it's a rather ambitious production, but it tends to work. And so again, I don't know why, but first time out, I decided to try to go big, and we did. And it seems to be working out so far.
Great. The final product is about 3 hours long. Is that correct?
Oh, actually, I'm not sure if it's actually 3 hours. It is 2 acts. The first act is approximately an hour. Then with an intermission, and then Act 2 is approximately 45 minutes or so. So if it's 3 hours, I'd be a little surprised if it were that long. I think it's in the standard kind of Broadway repertoire range of minutes. I don't think it's terribly long. I think it's about right, I hope.
Looking forward to seeing it. I'm really looking forward to it.
Great.
John, do you have any final thoughts on the musical or about the fundamental message that it entails?
Well, thank you so much for asking me about it. Again, because I sort of came into this never having done a musical, I'm just so gratified with the fact that I think there are a number of nice melodic songs, and that was one of my big goals. I must tell you, Michael, that I'm a big lover of melody, and I wanted to make sure, certainly with my first musical, that I strove to write some decent melodies, and I don't know if I've accomplished that, but people seem to like them, and you hope that people are humming or whistling a tune when they come out of a show, and I think I accomplished that. I've heard a lot of people during intermission are usually singing a song, one of the songs, and
Yes.
I think that as a composer, honestly, it may sound silly, but as a composer, that's a big deal for us, to have a melody that might stick in the audience's mind, and they might remember it as time goes by. And so that, for me, was one of my biggest goals. I wanted to go a little bit old school, as we say, Broadway, and try to write a few melodies that hopefully people like and remember.
John, it was a pleasure talking to you. It was a huge honor, and I would like to thank you for taking so much time out of your busy schedule. I really appreciate that. And it was great talking to you. I hope to see you soon. I hope to talk soon. And I wish you all the best for your future projects.
Thank you, Michael. It was a joy talking to you, and I would love to see you one day in person, and we'll do it again.
Sure, I would love to. Thank you so much, and you have a nice day. Thank you, John.
Thank you.